Well, welcome back to hopefully a more cheerful fucking edition of 42nd Street Pete's Grindhouse. And I don't have my hat on. Do I need my hat? I don't know. Corrective hat, whatever. I'm bald. I don't give a shit. But anyway, I had a request. Someone asked me my thoughts on the film Maniac from 1982, which we just happen to have the huge Blu-ray Deluxe Special Edition with all the bells and whistles and extras and all kinds of other shit. So, yeah, of course there's a backstory to this because this movie basically was going to showcase the talents of then, fan of every, patron saint of every fucking gorehound out there, Tom Savini. And that came across because of what he had done in, I believe it was Dawn of the Dead was the first thing, then Friday the 13th. So actor Joe Spinell and director William Lustig, Joe had written the screenplay, Lustig was the director, they got the spots in New York City. Of course, they didn't use permits, which led to a lot of chaos. But pretty much, it was a story of this guy, Frank Zito, who was a serial killer abused by his mother, who was basically murdering and scalping hookers and nailing their scalps to mannequins that he kept in his wonderful little apartment. There was a huge hype for this film in Fangoria magazine because Fangoria was practically blowing Tom at that point. And this was going to be the big groundbreaking fucking thing, which it was. There was some very stunning and very groundbreaking special effects in this, but true to form, Savini shit all over the film after that, and also said he might have taken it too far, which prompted Joe at an appearance to say that Tom could go suck my dick. So, be that as it may, they had done a lot of stuff, including shotgunning the head off a guy, strangling a guy in the opening scene with a piece of wire, scalpings, impalings, bayonettings, all kinds of other shit. And then there was the weird love interest between Joe's character and Carolyn Monroe. And the reason that was put in there was because Carolyn's husband financed some of the movie and she got this role, which basically she was sort of smitten with Joe, if you can believe that. But the weird part was a lot of us were sort of like laughing at some of these scenes because, Joe would be nice sitting next to her and stuff like that. Then she'd get up and he'd go, ugh. And, just a couple of weird fucking things like in his apartment, in bed with one of these corpses or mannequins or something like that. And he goes, I am so happy. And he had a doll in a bird cage and he goes, probably want a cracker. I mean, there was some burnt fucking bizarre shit in there. And then his demise where they basically rip his head off and shit like that. So yeah, this was heavily hyped and released unrated because they knew if they went before the board they'd get an X. So it was put out by Analysis Film, I believe, and it debuted in New York. And the week it debuted, I had the fucking flu. But I sucked it up and got out of bed because this was one of those things where it was a must-see, one of those deals. So I wanted to see it, and I did get to see it. I'm not a huge fan of slasher films in general. I just think they're a cheap way to make a horror film, and pretty much it's all violence against women, which this film was shit on because of that. Actually, Joe wanted to make a sequel with Buddy Giovanni, but never materialized because at 52 years old, Joe died. Cause of death is still up for speculation. Some say he had a massive heart attack after doing a lot of drugs. Some say he was a hemophiliac and bled to death after an accident in his apartment. Be that as it may, Joe died way too young. He was a talented guy and just lucked into the business by playing a thug in The Godfather, and then, roles just came his way because he was that kind of a sleazy bastard. As far as Tom Savini, I was a Tom Savini fan until I met him. Now I am no longer a Tom Savini fan, as a lot of other people aren't. As a matter of fact, there was actually a website, I don't know if it's still up there, that said Tom Savini is a douchebag. But, that's people's opinion, and like I said, I, tried to, be friendly with Tom, but Tom, I guess it depends on what he has for breakfast. He was looking for this movie, The Hunchback of Notre Dame, with Anthony Quinn. I actually found it on VHS. I handed it to him. I didn't even get a thank you. He threw it in his bag and walked away. So, something, hop in. As far as, the film goes, it drew huge crowds in New York. It was 1983 because it was that time. Ultra-violent horror was huge back then. When you think of Make Them Die Slowly, Dr. Butcher, all the Italian giallos coming in, the cannibal films, the zombie films. Yeah, ultra-violent horror was huge. It pushed the envelope. And maybe it pushed it too far sometimes. But be that as it may, this was, the segue for Tom to go on to The Burning, The Prowler, and other casualty things until he did Creepshow, where he could actually make some monsters. So, did I like the film? For what it was worth with Spinell's performance, yeah, it was okay. The backdrop of New York City with the back alley ambiance that William Lustig himself could only produce using some porn stars like Abigail Clayton and Sharon Mitchell to fill in other roles. Yeah, it was okay. It was worth getting out of a sickbed to see. Does it hold up now? Pretty much, considering some of the other shit that's gone on since then, it's pretty tame. But the place was packed. It bounced around 42nd Street and then went to home video eventually. It was universally panned by critics. The Women Against Pornography people basically hated it. But that word of mouth drew people into the theaters. And it still stands up today. It's one of, I could say it's one of the better slasher films. But then, you're basically dealing with a bucket of shit anyway, because, you had all these stupid fucking films coming out right after another. I mean, okay, Halloween was one thing. And let's face it, Michael Myers, as I said, burned to a crisp in the second thing, so he should have never came back. But you had that. You had Friday the 13th. You had Mother's Day. You had April Fool's Day. You had New Year's Evil. You had all kinds of shit, holiday-themed slasher films, which basically, Terror Train. Man, we went to see all this shit, but we basically shredded these films. We were sitting there stoned, drunk, and ripping them apart. And it's not like I have a shitload of these in my collection, because I don't. I think I got that, maybe The Burning. And, of course, I have to have Friday the 13th and Halloween, because that's a prerequisite. But other than that, no. And like I said, it was sort of, this whole thing in the 80s of this, horror went ultra-violent and went over the top, and this is probably one of the best examples of it. But again, it's like one of those films that just will stand the test of times because it's notoriety, sort of like Blood Feast, like Night of the Living Dead. They will stand the test of times, even though, they were a little more violent than anything that ever come before them. So, luckily nobody's passed away lately, and I got to update something. I had spoken to the promoter of Chiller Theater who had watched my broadcast, and the real story of the stabbing was that this was a guy who just got out of an institution and was brought there by his parents. And for whatever reason, he grabbed a cell phone from this kid, took off with it, and was confronted and pulled a knife and stabbed a security guy in the chest. It's a miserable situation. They're handling it as best they can, but this is an abnormality at conventions. This shit just doesn't happen, especially at Chiller Theater. Because Chiller Theater, like I said, has great security. Always has and always will. They always protected the fans. So that's sort of like the real story of what happened. The guy was mentally unstable. He just got out of an institution. He wasn't homeless, as reported. He wasn't carrying a gun, as reported. The officer that got stabbed did pull a gun and tell him not to fucking move. But of course, when you're standing there and you've been stabbed close to your fucking kidney, you're going to be pissed off. So let's just hope this is an isolated incident and never happens again at any convention, because we're all there to enjoy ourselves, meet like-minded people, and talk movies is what we do. So that's the story with that. So until next time, and I do take requests like I did this one, and maybe you guys should request stuff, because it would save me from tripping over my dick and covering the same fucking ground that I've done, because I've done so many of these, I really don't remember how much stuff I've covered. So if you got something I haven't covered, or you think I should cover, by all means, let me know about it. I'm open for that. You got the email. You can put the comments on the YouTube thing. So let's rock and roll, guys. So until next time, stay safe. Thanks for subscribing. Thanks for tuning in. And maybe I'll find my hat next time. So until then, be well. Oops.